Hey guys, BrandonioProductions here, and welcome to part 5 of creating a snake game in Java. And now in the previous 4 parts, we actually created a game that looks a little something like this. Hooray! Now there are a few things we actually need to solve in this part. First of all, as you can see, the fruit always spawns at the top left. And when we actually go over to the fruit, well, nothing happens. And as you can see, there's also a slight glitch with flashing, and on top of that, we can also turn directions like this and swap directions and turn on top of each other, and that's always annoying. So we need to solve a couple things in this tutorial. So the first thing we're going to actually want to work on is the fruit. So as you can see here, we already created a point where if the snake hits the fruit, something needs to happen. So as you know by classic snake rules, if the snake actually hits the fruit, we want the snake to actually grow. So what we want to do is we're going to want to actually add a piece onto the end of the snake that is in the correct direction. So the first thing we want to do is actually get the butt of the snake, if you will. So we're going to say point butt equals, and then we're just going to go ahead and get snake.peak last. So this is the butt of the snake. Yes. Okay, so now what we need to do is we actually need to add a new point on the butt of the snake that no, actually, we don't even need to worry about any of this. All we need to do is add a new point onto the butt of the snake. So we just need to simply say snake.add, and this is going to add a new point at the end of the list, but we can actually further say that we want to add a last point, and then we're going to create a new point. So wait, yeah, we're gonna need the butt object. So I don't know what I was thinking. So first of all, we're going to save the butt equal to our snake.peak last. It's kind of funny because we're saying peak and butt in the same sentence. But anyway, so we're actually getting our end point. And what we want to do here is we actually want to append a new point onto the end of the snake. So if we get a fruit and our butt is facing a certain direction, we want to add this new point onto the actual we want to add this new points in the opposite direction of what the butt is facing. But I'm thinking, what if instead of adding to the butt, we actually add it to the head? That could be semi-unusual. Because what we've got is we've actually got the head going a certain direction, but we don't actually have a butt going any direction. It's just the butt's just constantly being deleted. But let's just try this. So what we want to do is we want to actually add a new point that relates to where the butt is. So let's go ahead and bring up our diagram here that we've been using throughout the tutorials. So we run into a fruit, let's say, and whoops, we want the rectangle too. So we're here. Let's just say we're a hollow snake, and we find a fruit here. Don't mind all the coloration changes. And so we actually find the fruit, and we're going a certain direction. Do we want to actually, once we hit the fruit, do we want to add a new point onto the butt here? Now, see, we could be totally twisted, and we won't know where the butt actually is. So once we hit this new point here, we want to add something onto the butt, but we don't know which direction the butt is going. So the butt could very well be over here, and we could add it to the left of it or the right of it. I'm thinking it's just better to add it at the head. What are you thinking? Well, let's go ahead and add it at the head and see what happens. So we're just going to go ahead and instead add this on top of our new point. So instead we're going to say so what we want to do is we want to say point add point equal to new point. dot clone. So we're just creating a new object that is the exact same as new point. And what is it saying here? So all we need to do is cast that to a point. So we're creating a new point that is exactly the same as new point. Now all we need to do is shift it over even more, so it can be the new head, if you will. Or we can shift over the head. So what we're going to want to do is we're actually going to want to take this entire switch statement and plop it right into this fruit statement. So what we want to do is we're taking this add point equal to where the new head's going to be, and then we're simply shifting the head over one more spot, and then we're just going to go ahead and say snake.push add point. So we are essentially popping in a new head, which is a very unique behavior because I'm pretty sure snake, you're supposed to put it at the back. But we haven't really tried this. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating a new point that is exactly the same as where the new head is going to be. And then what we're doing is at the end here, we're popping in that new head. But in order to compensate for this, we're actually calling our move method again, right here, which will actually take the new head and plop it over one more point according to whatever direction we're going. So we're essentially adding two heads to our new snake instead of simply just one. So in order to test this, we're actually going to move the fruit into the middle of the grid by making it over at 1010. And then we can go ahead and run the application. And we're just going to move our snake over to the fruit. And as you can see, it was essentially flawless. We go over the new fruit, and when we come out, we're bigger. So everything works as planned. We can constantly just go over this new fruit, and we'll constantly get bigger. Okay, perfect. So now that we figured out that that works, we've definitely got a double head thing going on, but it definitely works. So now that we do that, we realize that after we go through the fruit, it doesn't actually disappear. Well, the goal of actually getting the fruit is eating the fruit, not simply passing over it. So after we get the fruit, we actually need to make a method that generates a random point for the fruit and then plops it there. So we're going to scroll down right after our draw methods, and we're actually going to say public void place fruit. Now what we want to do is we want to generate a random point on the grid that is actually within the grid and not on top of our current position to place the fruit. If it was on top of our current position, it would get immediately consumed, and that would be no fun. So what we want to do is we want to simply say that we want to make a int or an integer random x, and we're going to set that equal to 0, and an integer random y. We're going to set that equal to 0. And what we're going to do is we're going to constantly generate these random numbers until they are applicable to our current situation. So we're going to say while random x, so random x is going to be equal to, so what we want to do is we actually want to create a new random number generator. So we can do this by saying random rand equal to new random. And then so once we actually import the random class, we can go ahead and say that random x is equal to rand dot next int, and then we can go ahead and send it a limiter. So it will generate anything from 0 to this n. So the highest amount for our random x is going to be our grid width. And our highest amount for our random y is going to be our grid height. So what we want to do is we want to say while random x, so what we want to do is if the random x is out of bounds, or if it's not out of bounds, okay, so if we're generating a number from 0 to our grid width, our random x is never going to be out of bounds. So we're going to say while random x dot okay, so what we do is now we have a new point. So then we can say points, no, yes, point random point equals to new point. And then we're going to send in a random x and random y as our x and y coordinates. So now that we have a new point, what we want to do is we want to keep generating a new point until it's off the snake. So we can say while random point, or while snake.contains random point. If this is the case and snake does contain random point, we need to actually generate new x's and y's. So then we can say random x equals rand.nextInt grid width, and random y equals rand.nextInt of grid height, which will generate, again, a number from 0 to the grid height. And then we could say point random point, or we can just say random point equals new point of random x and random y. So while the random point where our fruit is going to be is actually inside of the snake, we need to actually generate a new random point. So this means as long as our fruit is inside of our snake, we're just going to keep generating points until it's outside of our snake. So no matter what, we're going to generate a point that's outside of our snake. And then once we're done with that, we're just going to say that fruit equals random point. So let's just go through this certain scenario. So we're generating two random numbers, and then we're creating a point out of those random numbers. Now let's just say that in that point, it's not on the snake. So the snake does not contain that point. Well, it's just going to skip down here and actually place the fruit at the random point. If this isn't the case, though, and our snake actually contains the random point, meaning the fruit is actually going to be on top of our point or our snake, we're just going to keep generating a random point until it's off our snake, and then our fruit is going to become the random point. So now that we know that this placeFruit method creates a new fruit at a random point, we can actually go up to where we were dealing with if the snake hits fruit, and as soon as we add the body part, we can now say that we want to place a fruit. So we're going to place the fruit at a new location. So now if we actually test the application, we can see that we can go down and gather this fruit, and then our body grows, and the fruit actually appears in a new location. So as you can see, our snake game is really tidying itself up. And it's really starting to work just like a regular snake game would. So the next thing we need to worry about is actually going out of bounds. So as you can see amongst the flashing, we can actually just kind of travel out of bounds and back in. So we're going to go ahead and actually compensate for that now. So if we go out of bounds, then we need to simply tell the loser that we lose, or the user that we lose, and then we're going to restart the game. So right now, we're not really dealing with score displays or any menus. So if this happens, we just need to reset the game. Currently, later we'll add some menus in here that say like you lose or something like that. So in order to reset the game, what we want to do essentially is set everything back to where this position is. Now what we want to do actually in this paint method is we're actually going to want to change this where fruit equals new point 1010. We're going to want to replace it with the placeFruit method, so the fruit is generated randomly every time. So now what we want to do is we essentially want to set everything back to the way it is. So we want to set the snake back to its old size at a new position. We want to make sure graphics are the same, which is not going to change. We want to make sure that this key listener is added, and we want to make sure that the thread is restarted. Well, that's where things get complicated. All we need to really do is stop the thread and restart it. Now, it sounds easy in application, however, not so much. However, what we can do, essentially, is we can simply just say the run thread is now equal to a new thread. Well, first, can we dispose the thread? Well, we can destroy the thread. So what we want to do essentially is we want to stop the thread and start a new one. So we can go ahead and say that run thread is now equal to a new thread. And this thread is going to be this as the runnable, of course. And run thread is simply going to start. So the thread is going to restart itself, and we need to actually change the Oh, you know what? Forget that. Forget the thread restarting. What we want to do is we actually want to take this snake here, where we generate the snake, and we're actually going to make this into a method. So we're going to say public void generate default snake. So we're just going to say where we take this snake.add. The first thing we want to do is we want to say snake.clear. So we're going to get rid of all the snake objects, right? And so the snake is going to be completely deleted, and then we're going to add 3 new points onto the snake, which are the default points. So if we actually want to start a new game, what we would need to do is we need to simply generate the default snake. And generating the default snake should also mean that we set the direction equal to nothing. So we want to say direction equals direction.no direction. So if this is the case, and this actually resets the game, all we're doing is we're keeping the thread going. So the fruit won't change at all. It should just be placed in a new place. But the snake essentially just jumps back to the beginning. So we can go ahead and pop this into every area. So there are a few things we need to check. We need to make sure that going out of bounds breaks the game, and that running into ourselves breaks the game. So let's go ahead and test that out. Now, as you can see, we immediately get a null pointer exception. Well, that's because when we actually create the paint method, we forgot to generate the default snake. A rookie mistake at best. So now if we actually run our snake applet here, you can see that we can go ahead and start going. Now our window is actually not big enough to hold everything, so we can actually tone it down a bit. So we're going to make the box height and width 15, and we're actually going to make sure that we only have 25 boxes. So it's now going to fit. So let's go ahead and test this out. We start and we press the down arrow. Let's get it going. And we get this, we grow, everything's hunky-dory. Let's go out of bounds. And as you can see, it resets us back to the beginning. Let's try it again. Let's go, start. Okay, that's a problem. So as you can see, it starts us off where we left off when we press an arrow key. But it does reset properly, which is always a good thing. Now let's try eating ourselves. Okay, as you can see, eating ourselves popped us back over there. So actually checking to see if we lose works. It's just our resetting doesn't work properly. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So all we're doing is resetting our snake. We're clearing it, and then we're adding the new points up to the top left. Now the problem seems to be within the move method, because all it does is it pops us back to where we were. So we want to say the move method peaks first, and it actually generates a new point on the head. So what we're doing essentially is when we lose, we're generating the default snake without actually breaking out of the move method. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm simply going to say return here. Before or right after we generate the default snake, we're going to go ahead and return. So that jumps right out of the move method. And let's go see if that did anything. So let's just hop out of bounds. And let's just try and go again. Okay, there we go. And as you can see, now with the return method, if we hop out of bounds and then we jump back, we can go ahead and start properly. Or so it would seem. So we jump out of there, and then we go ahead and start it off. Start it off by going down this time. Okay, we're going left. So, yes. So the resetting seems to work a little bit. It still feels really clunky when resetting. However, we can fix that later. But currently for this tutorial, we are out of time. So in the next tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to clean up, and we're going to actually make it so you can't turn on top of yourself, because that kills you. So we're going to make it so if you press the opposite direction of where you're going, nothing happens in the next tutorial. And we're also going to clean up our bugs a little bit. So stay tuned for that. But thank you very much for watching our snake tutorial. I don't even know what number it is anymore. Thanks for watching. Thanks for staying tuned. I hope you're having a great day. And please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.